This election campaign, some eye-catching posters have popped up on German billboards. A white, pregnant woman lies happily holding her bump. The tagline "New Germans will make our own." Two white women walk away from the cameras in skimpy swimwear. Burkas we'd rather see bikinis. A cute piglet grazes in a field, glancing cheekily at the camera. Islam no room in our kitchen. A poster of the far-right Alternative for Germany "New Germans will make our own." Photo supplied. Black tire tracks are splashed in red blood and labeled with the dates and body counts of recent European terror attacks. The tracks left by the global chancellor through Europe. That chancellor, Angela Merkel, looks set to cruise to victory in this weekend's German election. Her centre-right Christian Democrats and their Bavarian allies, the CSU, are streets ahead in the polls, well in front of the centre-left Social Democrats. The country's first female chancellor has lasted 12 years, and barring a huge upset will be asked back for 4 more. But in Germany, third is the new first. The country will be radically different depending on who takes the political bronze: the far-left Die Linke, the Liberal Free Democrats, the Greens, or, as currently seems most likely, the Alternative for Germany AfD. Black and red tire tracks are labeled with the dates and body counts of recent terror attacks in this Alternative for Germany poster. The tracks left by the global chancellor through Europe. Photo Facebook. Those posters are the AfD's. Currently polling over 10%, this anti-European Union, anti-Islam, anti-immigrant group is likely to be the first far-right party in the Bundestag since 1957. Thanks to the proportional system, there will be dozens of them. Among them will probably be the party's vice chairman, 76-year-old Alexander Gauland, who successfully resisted a move by some colleagues in April to tug the party towards the mainstream. Alternative for Germany Vice Chairman Alexander Gauland speaks in Nuremberg. Photo DPA via app on refugees. He says we have to close the borders, we cannot be blackmailed by children's eyes. He told a recent rally we're becoming foreigners in our own country and Germany belongs to the Germans. Immigration, Islam and terrorism are often mentioned in the same breath. Islam is not a normal religion, he said in a recent interview. Not a part of our community of values and not compatible with it. Burkas, we prefer bikinis. The Alternative for Germany has portrayed Islam as incompatible with German life. Photo app. He doesn't deny the crimes of the Nazis, but at the same time he backs his party's policy to broaden German memories. He told supporters Germans should take pride in what their soldiers achieved in World War II. He has expressed resentment at the location of the Holocaust Memorial in the center of Berlin. The AfD say they are restoring democracy to a country stifled by one-note politics and elite consensus. German Foreign Minister Sigmar Gabriel. We will have real Nazis in the German Reichstag for the first time since the end of World War II. Photo New York Times. Foreign Minister Sigmar Gabriel told tonline.de that if AfD enters parliament, we will have real Nazis in the German Reichstag for the first time since the end of World War II. The AfD has pledged to go after Merkel, to severely punish Gauland's words her for opening the borders to Syrian refugees in 2015. A poster of Germany's far-right NPD in which refugees take photos of a beachgoer, tourists welcome asylum cheaters and Islamists out. Photo supplied. Refugees have been the leading topic of concern in this election, almost 2 years on from the height of the crisis. When the refugees started arriving, Germans applauded at train stations in proud demonstrations of Willkommenskultur, the culture of welcome. But months later, as the stream of arrivals reached and then exceeded 1 million, the pushback began. Protesters shouted "Go home" at refugee buses, and a shelter was destroyed by arson. An Alternative for Germany poster. Colorful variety. We have it already. Photo app. Opening the borders to Syrian refugees had been a personal decision by Merkel, a career-defining moment. She had been contemplating retirement, but instead decided to rewrite her legacy. We will handle it, Merkel insisted, repeatedly. It became her unofficial slogan. Gradually, many Germans came to believe it, and her party's popularity recovered. The incumbent German Chancellor Angela Merkel speaks during a campaign rally in Hamburg this month. Photo Bloomberg. There's now some control over the inflow of people. That's made a big difference, says Pepin Bergson, an analyst from the Economist Intelligence Unit. The initial frustration was really around that feeling of control. Germans are generally quite welcoming, but there was a feeling that the government had lost control over who was coming in and the scale of the problem. Nadia Haj Mohammed Center, and other Germans sort through delivered food at the Tafel Food Bank headquarters in Bremerhaven, which has seen a sevenfold increase in the number of people served since Angela Merkel came to power. Photo New York Times. In this month's TV election debate, Merkel and her Social Democrat rival Martin Schulz found themselves in fierce agreement over refugees. Critics said they'd tuned in to see a fight and instead heard a duet. But partly thanks to the AfD, the issue has been central to the campaign, says Professor Gustav Horn, director of the Berlin economic policy think tank IMK. 81% of Germans are happy with their personal economic situations, and well over half think the country is on the right track. Photo app. It's about how to integrate refugees into the labor market, how to give them a decent income, how to bridge the cultural differences, what about the criminal statistics of refugees, how to get rid of those who are criminals, or all that stuff is being discussed now, he says. The German population is split about this issue. A narrow majority is not worried about it. They say we can deal with it, that we should deal with it as a matter of humanity. But there is certainly a high share of people who are concerned, particularly about the criminal records, especially people in the former East Germany who are not used to dealing with these kinds of cultural differences. They are very much worried. They complain about a lack of control over this issue and that makes them easily accessible to the right-wing parties. Despite ongoing internal tensions, the AfD have doubled their polling numbers since the beginning of the year. People are concerned, people want to protest about refugees, and in order to protest they vote for the AfD, or at least they say they will, Horn says. Depending on the post-election coalition maths, the AfD could easily end up as the biggest opposition party in parliament. That would give it the chairman's seat in a powerful budget committee. The AfD's Georg Pajewski told reporters his party would use its predicted role to highlight the cost of the refugee crisis and trouble in the Eurozone. We'll have a voice when we're in parliament. We won't be an easy opposition, he said. Bergson says the AfD have had a strong campaign, with focused messaging. The hesitancy that kept these parties away from power will work to keep a lid on it, he predicts, but like other successful far-right parties in Europe recently, they will shift the political center. You only need to look over the border to Austria, where the centre-right party outraged the far-right by essentially copying its election campaign. But, for now, everyone is defined in Merkel's shadow. For years now her nickname has been Mutti, Mummy, and young first-time voters see her as a constant that keeps the world stable. Merkel is associated with the status quo, says Bergson, and the status quo is good. The unemployment rate has been steadily falling and GDP rising since 2009, and the county also has a healthy and growing trade surplus. Government finances are in a healthy state, with tax revenue soaring. In general, Germans are just very satisfied, Bergson says. 81% of Germans are happy with their personal economic situations, and well over half think the country is on the right track. Merkel presents an aura of stability, and why vote for change and something else if you're happy with how things are going? Horn agrees with this analysis, though below the surface there's a lot of concern about the global situation, about social injustice and about refugees, he says. Schulz does his best work when he talks about social injustice, Horn says. The median family income has not risen that much in real terms, and the lower incomes have been declining in real terms. There is a general feeling that only the richer part of the population get the fruits of the economic upturn. The inequality of income and especially wealth has been rising over the last decade quite significantly. Nevertheless, somehow Merkel isn't blamed. And that has something to do with the uncertain global environment we are in, Horn says. The European crisis, the difficulties with Russia, the Trump administration. She is not blamed for all the problems here, rather she is trusted to deal with all the other problems we see. Germans are proud that she is seen as the leader of the free world. There's much concern in Germany about the politics of Donald Trump, and Putin and Orban in Hungary, and Erdogan in Turkey. In this difficult situation people say we need a chancellor that is calm and reflects on things and has a strategy. Merkel reportedly dislikes the label of leader of the free world. For obvious historical reasons, Germans are hesitant to strongly project themselves in global conflicts. But she is unapologetically a voice at the tables of power for a rules-based global order, and accepts that it's a lonelier voice these days. She said after the G7 summit in May that the era in which we could fully rely on others is over. To some extent, that's what I experienced over the past several days. We Europeans truly have to take our fate into our own hands. Bergson says Merkel has avoided the public disillusionment that afflicts many politicians over time because she is adept at mirroring the public mood. She consumes opinion polls for breakfast and follows the electorate in how they're moving. She hasn't pushed through much that people didn't want. Her main opponent Schulz, formerly president of the European Parliament, has tried to paint this as a flaw. Her entire platform can be summed up in a single sentence: trust me, everything will be fine, he told Spiegel Online. Her unprincipled pragmatism has led to a political vacuum that the opportunists of the day are filling by peddling fear. The AfD has naturally profited from the fact that Merkel has robbed the Christian Democrats of their ideological core. But politically, it has worked. For example, this year Merkel allowed Parliament to vote in same-sex marriage, which she had blocked for years. She claimed it was thanks to a chance life-changing encounter with a persuasive lesbian constituent. But the fact that an overwhelming majority of Germans were in favor can't have hurt. It was also politically convenient, as it prepared the ground for a post-election coalition with the Greens, the Social Democrats and the Free Democrats, all of whom had flagged that gay marriage would be a red line in coalition talks. In 2013, there were 86 days of talks before the Christian Democrat-Social Democrat Grand Coalition was agreed. This year could be even more painful. On the polling numbers, a Grand Coalition, neither party's first choice, is one of only two options that would deliver a majority government, and the SPD is likely to drive a harder bargain this time. A so-called Jamaica coalition could also work the black of the CDU with the Greens plus the yellow Free Democrats. But the Greens and FDP disagree on many fundamental issues and would be a nightmare to tie into a cohesive government. In other words, though the election winner is a safe bet, the form of the government that will result is a big unknown. In Hamburg on Wednesday, Merkel came on stage after a band pumped up the crowd with Cool the Gang's Celebration. She then told her supporters not to celebrate. "What I've heard in the last days is unbelievable, that everything is already decided," she said. "It is not. Every vote counts." She told the crowd that turbulent times required stability and security. The CDU's posters are neither controversial nor memorable. Merkel gazes out of them, smirking, over the slogan for a Germany where we live good and well. It means compassionately and prosperously. Merkel is insisting that good guys can finish first. And, if you believe the polls, Germany still trusts that mummy knows best.